Welcome back to the SwimSwam Breakdown. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, joined by David Clossy, aka the Swim Scribe from St. Cloud, Minnesota. We are coming to you with another 2024 Olympic Games review. We did the men's episode yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, you can listen to that after this one. But today we're talking women's swimming from the 2024 Olympic Games. This episode of the SwimSwam podcast is sponsored by Commit Swimming, SwimSwam's exclusive team management software partner. Since 2015, Commit has been providing coaches with swimming's leading workout management software. And now, Commit has team management software too. Commit wants to help you make the switch from Team Unify to a simpler, more powerful solution. Their onboarding and customer service team will walk you through every step of the way. Check them out at commitswimming.com to book your demo today. That's COMMIT swimming.com. We are starting off with our top three swims from Paris on the women's side. For me, my number one swim wasn't even an individual swim. It had to be that USA women's 400 medley relay that smashed their own world record. David, I know you and I agreed on this as a top three swim. What did you like out of this the most?
I really liked, first of all, it started off with Regan Smith Olympic record, taking down Kayla McEwen's Olympic record from earlier in the meet. And, it's kind of, she's really good at beating McEwen on relays. I think it's the only time she's ever touched in front of McEwen, and it adds such an interesting wrinkle to their dynamic, with how many close battles they've had and how in the individuals McEwen seems to have that magic touch to just get just ahead. But so seeing Regan Smith in general, set an Olympic record and also win a gold medal. Those are both, 1-2 punch right there. Lily King had a phenomenal split, 104.9. Gretchen Walsh, 55.0.
We had commenters all week saying, "Oh, they should put Kate Douglas in on the relay instead of Lily King because Lily King didn't medal. She was 100th off of medaling in the 100 breasts, and like Kate Douglas won the 200 gold in the 200 breasts. Like they should put Kate in on instead of Lily." And I was adamantly against it, and I was vindicated for it.
For this reason, I mean, because Lily King's always been a really good relay swimmer. I think it's just because. Yeah. How she swims, right? She's someone who seems to very much feed off of the energy of, the crowd and the swimmers around. And I think she very much seems like someone who's going to do, if she goes in behind, she can do everything she can to get ahead. If she goes in ahead, she can do everything she can to extend that lead. And obviously all swimmers are going to try and do that. But, I think she just has that. She always is able to bring an extra gear for the relays. And is, that's an archetypal swimmer, right? Is that there's always that relay swimmer who's just clutch in the relays. And I feel like that's mostly, I feel like freestylers. You see it less in like breaststroke legs. And so that's a cool thing. But then Gretchen Walsh, 55.0, that I believe that tied Sarah Sjostrom for the fastest ever. And then Tori Husk capped it off with the, 52 mid, not as fast as her split from the start of the meet, but it's still a fast split. And that was the only one.
They were 4 seconds ahead.
Yeah, that was the only leg that wasn't the absolute fastest in the field. Mm-hmm. That was the only one where there's some people were trying to make a move, but they're chasing. It's easier when you're chasing and you're looking at her, with your binoculars at that point.
Oh, I feel very confident that if Tori needed to be a half a second faster on that leg, she would have, because the night before in the mixed medley where they broke the world record, she anchored in 51.8. Right. Yeah. So it's like it was the last race of the meet. They were so far ahead. It's like Tori did what she needed to do.
Yeah. First team ever under 350 as well, which is really cool. Yeah. Just to get, tick it down another second. Into that new territory. And also, speaking of Tori Husk, just because I don't think there's another point where I'm going to get a chance to mention this. On her fast split on night one, 0.00 reaction time. That is just, that looks like a timing error. It's not even like a negative 0.01 or a 0.01. It's 0.00. I just wanted to mention that because, wow, she's been clutch on some relays.
She really did clutch up this meet in every swim she had, right? I mean, she silver in the 100 free. I think I haven't talked about that much, but medaled in both her individual events, Olympic champion in the 100 fly, swam 51 on a relay twice, and then 52.4 to anchor a world record relay on the women's medley. It's like, there have been a lot of commenters who have been unhappy in the past with Tori Husk's relay performances, and it makes me so happy that she put those to rest with this meet. Like, you can never again say, oh, Tori Husk is not as good on relays, because she was just lights out. So I would say certainly that's in the top 3 swims. You and I both agreed on this one as well. Summer McIntosh, similar to Leon, who won 4 gold medals. Summer won 3 golds and a silver. You got to give her some love for at least one of her swims. And for me and you, it was that 200 fly, 2:03.03, the second fastest performer and performance of all time in that event. Lights out, really fast, world junior record, Olympic record, Canadian record. She is untouchable in that event at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that was an insane performance, just isolated in its own right. And then when you kind of zoom out with that historical perspective of, that took a big chunk towards that unbreakable world record. I'm not going to call a shot that she's going to break it yet, because it's still a ways off. Maybe she goes a 4. That'd be a ways off. A 2:02 at some point. Then once just a few hundredths, and then but no, the fact that no one has even, let alone touching the world record, no one else has been able to leapfrog Jessica Schipper in this number 2 performer spot since 2009. So being able to take just that big bite over, and the fact that the previous fastest performers who people were freaking out going, maybe they'll be the ones to break it, were Zhang Yufei and Regan Smith at 2:03.8. Well, they're 86 and 87, right? They're, well, not anymore. Regan Smith actually went a PB, but at the time,
84.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still 2:03.8, and that's, now we're quite a bit faster and crossed that gap significantly. And so that was an exciting and awesome swim to watch in its own right. And I think one of the most impressive just of her individual golds, compared to, and then you add in that secret sauce of, oh wow, this is also just really good on a historical level. And I think it's one of the most impressive non-world record swims of the meet for me.
Yeah, agreed. That swim really stood out, not only because it was so fast, but again, just you're inching towards that supersuited record that has seemed untouchable, and now it seems slightly less.
There's one crack in the armor. There's a single crack, and it says Summer McIntosh.
Exactly. So there's hope. And like on the men's side, you and I differed on our third race, or third swim of the meet. For me, going back to Regan Smith and Kaylee McEwen, it was the women's 100 back and Kaylee's performance specifically. Kaylee comes in here as the defending Olympic champion, and Regan comes in as the world record holder. And a lot of people were like, okay, I think they're going to split them. I think Regan's going to get the 100. I think Kaylee's going to get the 200. But I think deep down, especially as Americans, a lot of us were hoping Regan was going to win the 100, and then thinking that Kaylee was going to win the 200. Like, it didn't feel as certain that Regan would win the 100, but it did feel pretty certain Kaylee would win the 200. But Kaylee McEwen, just so automatic not with her race execution and with how she executes it, because that last 15 meters every single time where Reagan's having a great race, you think, oh, she's got a chance, and then Kaylee's just there every single time, and she got the job done. And like, to me, again, that was the first race of the 2 backstrokes, the 100 back. Like, it was just so impressive to watch Kaylee do that and then go on to win the 200 and get that double.
Especially because Reagan Smith has improved that part of her race as well. We saw that in her world record. That was the big point of improvement, watching her world record swim. As once the world record line started to catch her, I went, oh, no, I know how McEwen swims this. Oh, okay. She's adjusted her race plan. And then I was, again, maybe it was that hope. I felt so called out there when you're saying that, Cole, because I have a very heavy Reagan Smith bias. I've said this before on the podcast. I'm currently sitting in Minnesota, where Reagan Smith is from. Got beat by her in 100 free at senior state one year. That was awesome.
That's so great.
Yeah. A few years older than her too.
There's no shame in that whatsoever.
Oh yeah, it's 2017. So then she would go on to break the world record. So it was before that. So I was like, oh, she's really fast. And then or not 2017. She'd go on to final in the 200 back, and 2 years later break the world record.
At World
Do something crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I was, I had that in my back pocket. I'm like, she was really good in this back part of the trial. She's gonna surprise. Did I accidentally queue up the 2023 race videos? No, it's Paris.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, no knock on Reagan. She has the Olympic record in the 100 backstroke again, and she broke a world record walking away from this meet with, I think, 2 golds and 3 silvers. Like, she had a phenomenal performance, but just Kaylee, man, just so consistent. Really, really impressed by that race. David, give me your 3rd race of this Olympics.
Yeah. So actually, the thing that bumped McEwen out of the top 3 for me, because that was in consideration, was the fact that Reagan Smith got the Olympic record. Because I feel like there's it's a good race, but when it's thinking about pure performance, if someone else went faster later, that kind of bumped it just out. For me, it had to be Sarah Sjostrom getting the gold in the 100 free, after the fact that it was newsworthy that she chose to swim it, right? The fact that, which is so crazy, that she's the world record holder, and everyone's like, whoa, you're swimming that race? That's crazy. Didn't think you were going to do that. She hasn't been swimming it recently. She didn't enter it in 2023, didn't enter it in 2024. And, despite being world record holder, hadn't won, an Olympic title in that event. And she's 30. And
not young for swimming.
Yeah. And just being able to get her hand on the wall first in that was such an incredible race and such an incredible performance out of that. And that was probably the happiest I've been of watching a swimmer win a title for a reason other than being an American or another overarching narrative, just purely on I'm so glad she got that. And with that story of this, she wasn't even thinking she wasn't going to swim it. She said in an interview that she didn't really want to. She had a dream about her winning it, and that's one thing that pushed her to do it, which I think is just such an extra level. Be like, yeah, I saw it in a dream, and I figured I may as well make it happen. And I don't know anyone who saw her her name pop up first, went, dang it. I feel like even Australian fans, expecting O'Callaghan to win the title, maybe, I don't even think they were overly upset, just because I find it, I have yet to see someone who has said that they strongly dislike Sarah Sjostrom, or even moderately dislike her for that matter. I feel like everyone is like, yeah, she's incredible.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why this race was my surprise of the meet, is because we didn't expect Sarah to swim it, let alone to win it, right? It's like, she says she's swimming the 100 free, and it's like, again, I hoped that she would win it, right? It's the kind of same thing with Reagan Smith. I couldn't bet on it, but I hoped that this is what would happen, because it would be so cool for her to win her first Olympic title in this swim that she didn't even think she was going to do. But you had so many other heavyweights. You had Siobhan Howie, who was the top seed coming in. You had Molly, who was the 2023 world champ. You had Merritt Steenbergen, who was the Doha world champ from earlier that year. You had Shayna Jack, who's been, I think, 52 low, right? It's like you had so many competitors. You had this surprise performance by Tori Husk where she goes 52-2 in the final. And it's like there were so many other people who you thought had better chance to top the podium. But Sarah not only wins this, but wins it on the back half, right? It's not like she just sprinted out to like a heavy lead and then maintained. It's like you saw her coming that last 25 meters and you're like, wait, what's happening? Wait, I'm sorry, what's happening here? Like, hold on, is this Sarah Sjostrom doing what her competitors have done to her for like the last 7 years? Like, oh my God. And then not only that, but then to see Tori get silver. I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card. To see Molly O off the podium, I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card, right? It's like, it was such a surprising final. And for me, like, just so satisfying of like, oh yeah, like Tori gets a medal. Like, that's awesome. Like, oh, Sarah wins. That's awesome. Like, yeah, it was a very surprising race in the best way.
How many people foresaw the United States out medaling Australia in the women's 100 free?
Exactly.
Did not see that one coming.
Did not at all. Especially, after the 400 free relay, where America gave them a good fight, but Australia still won by over a second.
Yeah, it was a surprising fight though.
It was a surprising fight.
I thought it was maybe closer to 2.5.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And going in, I had said like, America has a shot. It's not big. They have a shot. And I think they showed that, I think they showed they're getting closer, they're still not there, but they're making progress.
Yes.
It was an American record, and we'll go with that. But sticking with surprises, David, what was your surprise of them?
So, my surprise is actually kind of related to yours, because one of the surprising factors in that race for you was Tori Husk, and my surprise of the meet was Tori Husk. Just overall,
period.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on it here and there, and the fact, especially talking about her in the relay, and then here is that she goes up against the world record holder in the 100 fly, who had broken the Olympic record in the semis, wins. Surprisingly, wasn't she in like an outside lane too, or like
in the 100 free?
Yeah.
Lane
so with that,
8.
I couldn't remember if it was like 8 or like maybe one lower, like 7. From outside smoke, grabs a medal and the silver at that. Not
lane
even
one. Lane 1.
Oh, lane 1. one of the outside lanes. Grabs that, and then like you were saying with the relay, just consistently knocking it out of the park. That was a big reason, I feel like, with the the relay being closer than expected. Still a second gap, but not 4 seconds. And it would have been a bigger gap if she hadn't split as fast. And just being able to throw down time and time again, but especially those individual performances, taking down the world record holder, who clearly was in some kind of shape, having broken the Olympic record in the semifinals. Like, that's, it's not like Gretchen Walsh had horrendous swim or anything, and like she finished off the podium. She still was in silver medal form. And that was just an awesome thing to see her be on such good form, and personally not something I expected at all. So that's why that was my most surprising part of the meet.
I loved seeing this. I was not as, I wouldn't say I was surprised by this, or maybe pleasantly surprised, but I did expect this in some form, because I think in Tokyo in 2021, it was Tori's first Olympic meet, first international experience on the senior level. she gets fourth. You know, she almost gets a medal there. And then the next year, she's world champion, you know, knocks it out of the park. I think we've seen time and time again, she is a racer. Like she performs well when the lights are bright. And then last year at Worlds, this is well documented. She had a huge school load to deal with at Stanford. She had very little downtime heading into trials and then heading into Worlds, and so I think she was just tired last year at Worlds, and I think that affected her taper. And so I was thinking she was going to have a good meet, but again, it was great to see just how good of a meet she did, because I did not see her getting on the podium in the 100 free, you know, or splitting 51s.
Yeah.
And so it's like it was really awesome to see.
I think for me, the thing that pushed it over into it being the most surprising thing for me was just, it was less that I was, you know, I wasn't down on her. I wasn't like, you know, we kind of talked about how some people, you know, like didn't like seeing her on relays and stuff like that. It was more that she super flew under the radar for me. I just totally overlooked her going into the meet. So that made it go, you know, it wasn't even like I was expecting her to perform poorly. And then she popped out. I just honestly didn't think about her too much overall. Like maybe doing like some picks for, you know, 100 fly. Oh yeah, she'll probably grab silver behind Gretchen, or, you know, maybe she'll flip it over and win. But then just for her to be such a consistent key player for Team USA was that was a big surprise for me.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And so again, it was great to see. On a different note, let's move on to Heartbreak of the meet. So on the women's side, what was your biggest heartbreak?
I'm curious if we have the same one for this, because I feel like I picked maybe an obvious one, but for me it had to be Alex Walsh getting DQ'd in the 200 IM, because, you know, it was a justified DQ. She was on her whole stomach.
Didn't make it hurt less.
It wasn't even, honestly, if anything, it hurt more, because even if it was like a borderline, you can at least kind of like cause a stink and be like, I don't think that counts. When it's just, no, that was all the way.
The DQ.
All the way. It wasn't even past vertical. You're just on your stomach. And it's, you know, especially seeing her cut it close, and, you know, as well documented in 2023, where, you know, McEwen got DQ'd, and then that was an interesting little story where McEwen got DQ'd in 2023, and then she's the one that got bumped into medal position after that DQ. And it's, you know, getting disqualified sucks no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're at some random dual meet, because at the very least, it's like, why did I swim? Why am I in pain now? I mean, I get disqualified at a random meet in the middle of October when everyone's swimming bad in the 400 IM, not even one of my events. Got disqualified. I was like, you could have stopped me halfway through. Like, I wouldn't have finished the race if I knew it didn't count. I already placed last. What did you need from me?
I think if it's like longer than a 200, there should be like a little form you can fill out before the race starts. It's like, if I get DQ'd like less than halfway through the race, like just put a card in, you know, put one of the red counters in so that I can just get out.
Yeah. And then of course, you know, so that sucks in general, right? Getting disqualified, never fun. Getting disqualified out of a medal. Ooh, because even, you know, comparing, you know, to bring up 2023 with Kaden McEwen, that wasn't in the final. It sucks to not get the chance. I feel like you could argue that which one is worse, but to me, it's the worst to know that you won a medal and then got disqualified, especially in something that isn't necessary. I wouldn't say it's not like a giant advantage. It's not like you're taking multiple dolphin kicks and you got busted on it, where you're like actively, you know, it's a more in the stroke infraction category, where it's not like, you know, you just mistimed your turn into the wall, and you had started turning and you weren't quite at the wall yet, is what I'm assuming she's doing, just because of how she's cut it close in the past. And then this was just started the turn a little far out, I think, and had fully rotated before the wall got there. And hopefully, I guess the silver lining is, if if that's not a wake up call to rethink your turning technique and timing. So I knock on wood that is going to be the last time that happens. But going from medalist to empty handed in one fell swoop is absolutely just heartbreaking.
It is, yeah, and I feel like the pun intended here. A silver lining for Alex Walsh. She already has a silver medal in from the 200 IM in Tokyo. I'm guessing that doesn't help it sting less right now, but it's not like you were going from saying, "Oh, I'm an Olympic medalist," to now I'm an Olympian. It's like she is still an Olympic medalist. Um, I'm sure it can't feel good to have your only event in the meet end in a DQ. But I'm hoping Alex isn't done swimming after this. And again, I'm hoping that means she'll get some redemption in the future. Because because she had a great swim other than a turn that wasn't legal,
Yeah.
I was considering that, but I went with two other USA heartbreaks, which were heartbreaking fourth places by less than 1/10 of a second. You had Lily King tie for fourth and miss the 100 breast podium by 1/100th of a second. And then you had Phoebe Bacon get fourth by 4/100ths of a second in the 200 backstroke. And both of the like Phoebe Bacon got fourth, I think, in Tokyo as well, and just missed out on the podium. And then Lily King was going for her third straight medal, Olympic medal in the 100 breast, and she's already said this is going to be her last Olympics. So for her to miss out on history like that really sucked, and for Phoebe to get fourth twice at 2 Olympics, it's like, damn, that is rough.
One phrase that I picked up from Mel listening to him on the SwimSwam podcast is fourth place wooden medal. I've never heard that outside of him saying that, and I think that fits so well. And it's just fourth place always sucks. Like fourth and ninth are some of the most just awful spots to place in there, and especially by those margins. And I think for me, if I had to give because they both have that extra little sting to them that pushes up just above a fourth place finish. It's not just fourth, it's the second fourth, or I think the slightly worse is fourth when you've already not a full on retirement, but that at least last Olympics, that like Lily King is planning. I think that one is, I think a little extra bit of a gut punch compared to even if it potentially be an outside shot to try and come back and win some hardware, like Phoebe Bacon at least can potentially use that drive of those fourth place finishes to feel like you can do something about it.
Yeah. No, yeah, agreed. And I think especially for the historic career that Lily King had, it would have been so cool to see her get on that podium again. But like we've said before, this meet is high highs and low lows. So and we don't know how they're feeling about them, but as fans, that was heartbreaking for me to watch. But let's go back to a high. Race of the meet. So speaking of Alex Walsh's DQ, that women's 200 IM was billed as one of the races to watch in Paris, and for me, it completely delivered. It was such a good race. All 4 of those women had great performances. You saw all the different race strategies come into effect there. Like Alex Walsh goes out fast. Kate Douglas is coming on the breaststroke. Summer McIntosh is coming home on the freestyle. I mean, it just delivered. Summer goes, I think she became the number 3 performer all time, Olympic record, national record, world junior record. Like it was so good. Even with Alex's DQ, the other 3 women were still on the podium. Like again, we're like, well, one of these women has to be off the podium. And originally we thought it was Kaylee, and then Alex gets DQ'd. And so Kaylee gets on the podium, but it's like, it had all this hype and it completely delivered. And so for me, like, that was still the race of the meet, even with the DQ.
Yeah, I think exact same race and exact same reasoning. It was as advertised.
Yeah.
Just, I love the 200 IM in general because it's such a fun mix of a shorter race compared to like 400 IM, to where you have so many different strategies that can play out in it in terms of your relative strengths, and it makes some swimmers that have faster front half, some swimmers that have that killer breaststroke leg, some swimmers that have maybe like Summer McIntosh doesn't necessarily have the breaststroke, but she has the front half and the freestyle leg. I believe Douglas slightly outsplit her, but she had enough of a lead where it didn't matter. And then you have that final chase home there. And 200 IM is always a really fun race to watch in general, just because I think it opens up a lot of different strategies and in a tighter, more competitive, because in a 400 IM, it's easier for someone to get away.
Yeah.
You can't really get that far away in a 200 IM unless your name is Leon Marchand, but go watch this episode for that one. So no one can get quite out of that top distance in there, and so there's always that threat that someone can come flying home on the breaststroke leg or on the freestyle leg, and you can't really rest easy. And so that is so exciting as a fan, watching, especially if you have a horse in the race one way or another.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of good races at this Olympics, but again, the last couple of days were some of the most exciting. That women's 200 IM was on day 8, and again, I think that was it was as billed and more. Yes. It just truly delivered.
I'm so glad it delivered, because like we've been talking, so many different like articles around breakdowns talking about like this race is gonna be insane. Like, you imagine if it just like fell flat entirely. That'd feel so silly.
And it was what made it even better is that the hype built for it throughout the meet, because we got to the 200 IM and you had Kate had won the 200 breast, Summer had won the 200 fly, Kaylee had won the 200 back, among other things for Kaylee and Summer. Each had at least one gold medal up to that point. And then Alex had put all her eggs in the 200 IM basket. So it was just like, oh my God, like they all look so good. And then again, through semis, it was like, oh, they all look really good. Like, we know this is going to be great. And then it was. And so it built up to the very moment of the final, and then just had a great finale.
Yeah. Realistically, the only thing this could have done to be even more exciting than it was a world record. That's the only thing that was missing. And at that point, with that caliber of racing, I care slightly less.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, it didn't even, yeah, I agreed. It could have been a world record, but like, I don't even care that it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was
at a certain point, I've shut that part out.
All right. Moving on, narrative of the meet. Maybe in the pool, maybe outside the pool. What was your favorite storyline to follow over this 9 days on the women's side?
This one is actually a pretty narrow and short storyline, I feel like, but something that that I just was something that's been on my mind a lot going into the meet is the Katie Ledecky 4-peat in the 800 free. Just because, that the realistically, a lot of people are probably thinking about it going, at least I was, going, man, only Phelps has done that in the 200 IM. Ledecky has the potential to match that here. If she's constantly either matching or surpassing various Phelps stats at this point. She's at that point in longevity,
dude,
right? That is crazy. For like world champ titles and stuff like that, and her streak in that event has been insane. The only thing that snapped the streak in the world titles is scheduling, is the fact that Doha happened. The only even sickness in 2019, it stopped her from winning the 1500. Still had a heck of a race. And then you had this mini narrative building in the fact that, okay, Ariarne Titmus was a touch faster at Australian trials than Ledecky was, but Ledecky looked kind of upset after, her distance swims at US trials. So she probably has some more. Where are they looking in the 400? Okay, the gap's about the same, and then Titmus, in the race itself, that was a really good race too, and that gave it this extra little
I loved
push in
watching
terms
that.
of
Yeah.
not just was it, watching them, you mentioned this before, like go, 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 and then the 600 hit, and then Ledecky takes off. Not only did it have that drama of just in any race, right? Who's going to win the gold? Is Ledecky going to win the gold? Is she going to hit the 4-peat, or is that going to be snapped, right? And and she managed to do it. And this is one thing that I think I know. There's an article kind of talking about how this could be her last Olympic title. If you had to sink or swim right now, do you think she wins it in LA 2028?
Oh God,
It's such a hard question.
Great sink or swim, David. Thank you for bringing this to the table. Let me talk a little bit about this first, because the women's 800 free was almost my race of the meet. And like, if you were an outside observer, if you're a casual sports fan who's like, oh, the Olympics, I'm going to watch that, and didn't know much about swimming, and you watched the women's 800 free, you probably didn't think it was that close of a race. You're like, well, Katie Ledecky pretty much had the lead the whole time. And then, and she's the best.
Then went further
event at and so it's like, it's fine. Like, she was going to win, obviously. But like, to me specifically, who, like, I was like, I think Ari I think Ari can make it a close race. And I think there's this is like the USA women in the 400 free relay. Like, I think there's a tiny chance that Titmus could upset Ledecky. She's in peak form. She's like, I don't think it's high. I'm not betting against her, but like, it could happen. And so for Titmus to make it that close of a race, and again, like at the 400, at the 500, it's like, she's right there. Like, oh my God, what, like, we've never seen this before ever, except for the one time when Summer McIntosh beat her at a sectional meet, like, and that barely counts.
The fact that made headlines shows how good she is in that event. The fact that losing at a sectional meet is like, this is crazy. This has never happened before.
Right. Because it's like, because usually she's body lengths ahead. And so the fact that she had a competitor within one body length of her, within like half a body length of her, it was like, is it going to happen? And then for Katie to just be like, no, of course it's not going to happen, and just drop the hammer at the 600. It was so epic. It was so Ledecky. It was just like, oh, she's such a boss. Like, it was just such an alpha move to be like, yeah, you may have taken over in the 400, but like, this is still my race. It was just like, I loved watching it so much, and it made it seem like probably more of a closer race than it was. But it was so satisfying to watch. So on that note, sink or swim is Katie Ledecky winning an Olympic title in LA 2028. Man, that's hard. I'm just going to talk through my thoughts. She's going to be 4 years older. I think she'll keep swimming. I think she's going for LA 2028. I don't think that's a question. She's kind of already said that.
She said that's a goal at the very least.
Yeah.
She's not like on the fence.
Yeah. I think women's distance swimming is getting faster. We certainly saw that at this meet. The field is closing in on Katie, but she still had a handy lead. She has two legitimate shots in the 8 and the 15. I'm swimming that Katie Ledecky will win an Olympic gold in 2028 at this point, because I think she is the exception, not the rule. I think we've seen endurance athletes age well into their 30s. And again, that 800 was closer than we thought, but that mile wasn't that close. And could a distance phenom come up in the next 4 years? Yep. But at this point, I'll swim with Ledecky.
Yeah, I swim it as well, because Ledecky has, when she was, in Rio, Ledecky in Rio was redefining what is possible for speed in these events and pushing that boundary. And then for a long time, the common wisdom in these events has been, it's a young girl's game in a lot of ways, right? It's like after a certain point, I remember there was a talking point even in in Tokyo going in, where it's like, not necessarily in the 800, 1500, but like in the 400, it was, wow, she's the oldest in this field, and things like that, and talking about how she's aging out of some of these competitions. And it seems like that was the way it skewed. And I think Ledecky's now, she has shifted from redefining the upper echelon of speed in this event, and is now redefining what longevity can be, because she has been so
She's
rock
LeBron
solid.
Jamesing swimming.
Yes. And the number one thing that makes me swim it isn't actually from this year, because I think if she, 8:11, if that was her fastest since Tokyo, which actually she was faster than Tokyo, right? I know she definitely wasn't the 1500. I think she was maybe a bit faster than Tokyo. While you look that up, the main thing for me
The mile was an Olympic record.
Yes. Obviously, the 800 wouldn't have been, because her world record would be the Olympic record in that one.
Yeah. She was 8:12.5 in Tokyo.
Okay.
So and 8:11 now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another good sign, right? Is the fact that, and of course, obviously, different factors in Tokyo. But last year, 8:07 and 8:08 at trials and then worlds. That is the X factor that makes me go, because she hasn't just been coasting off of her lead at the world record and maybe like slowly diminishing and, just like coasting off of going, yeah, I'm still so good. I can keep coming down and down and down and down, and it'll take you forever to catch me. The third fastest of all time was from last year. That's bonkers. The fact that you can do that far removed from when you set that world record. And that is the main thing that makes me think that, if she can maintain around the form she's been in the past 3 years, can anyone new catch that? And also, Titmus and Madden looked fantastic. Are they going to go 8:12 and 8:13 in 4 years? That might be an incorrect assumption, is the fact that, if Ledecky is an exception in terms of longevity, that's going to be pushing beyond what we might expect for some other swimmers. And I think there's just a lot of factors, and that at a certain point, it's, do you bet against Ledecky?
Yeah. No, and I think we see a lot of swimmers who can like do the 2, 4, and 8, right? Paige Madden, Ariane Titmus. Or like a lot of the swimmers that are swimming the 800 free are also focusing on the 400 and maybe the 200. And so I think the 800 comes with its own set of competitors, or some different competitors, which you see on the men's side as well. But then the mile, the 1500 kind of has its own, like, people who like kind of do open water or just really focus on distance. And so I think Katie, again, has 2 shots in that, but like, she won the mile by 10 seconds at this Olympics. Last year at World Champs, she won by 20 seconds. So like you said, if she just maintains for 4 years, which is no easy task, but if anyone can do it, it seems like it's her. And she's hard to catch. She's going to be hard to catch. So on a similar note, you took the micro narrative of Katie Ledecky in this Olympic Games, and my narrative was the macro narrative for Katie Ledecky, which was she left Paris with 14 Olympic medals, tied with Emma McKeon now for most Olympic medals by a swimmer not named Michael Phelps. And like, it was so fun for me the whole meet to follow that narrative, because we kind of knew going in, okay, Katie has 10 medals, Emma has 11 medals. Like, they're both have the potential to break the 12 medal barrier, which 3 women were tied for as the most Olympic medals by a female swimmer. That was Natalie Coughlin, Jenny Thompson, and Dara Torres. And so to see both Emma and Katie reach that threshold, break it, and then end up with 14, Ledecky having 9 gold medals and like a ton of individual medals, like, for her to really be like the greatest of all time in that regard on the female swimmer side, in terms of Olympians. Like, I loved getting to follow that narrative, and it was so satisfying to see her make history in that regard.
Yeah, one thing I'd add to that is you mentioned with the amount of individual golds too, is like she has less relay options. Is another, it's crazy that someone who has more traditional sprinter lineup that can add a few more relays. Ledecky pretty much just does, for most of the time, it's just the one, and so that makes it even an extra little nudge for that feat of, wow, that's crazy that you managed to do that as a distance swimmer,
Seriously.
and not being able to do her arguably her better event relative to the rest of the field, except for the last two Olympics, not being able to do the 1500 in London or Rio.
Right.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
could potentially have been two more.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess you could make the argument the other way that, like, oh, she got the mile was added for the last two Olympics, and so those two medals are, whatever. But the same argument can be set for Emma McKeon, who medaled in the mixed medley.
Yeah.
And so Ledecky would still have 12 without the mile, and majority would be individual. She has 4 relay medals and 10 individual medals. So, she'd still have the most individuals and the most individual golds. So, yeah, either way you slice the bread, Katie Ledecky, extremely impressive.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
In case you haven't been around for the last 12 years. And with that, we're wrapping up this podcast with swimmer of the meet. I'm pretty sure we probably have the same answer for this, but I think I got to give it to Summer McIntosh.
I got to give it to Summer McIntosh too. I mean, it's basically a mirror of what we saw with Leon Marchand, where it's just the amount of, it wasn't quite as insane compared to the rest of the field, where Marchand was, the only one racking up multiple individuals, but still having 3 golds and a silver individually, and having some winning that epic race, having the insane performance in the 200 fly, and then going up against the world record holder, getting silver behind her, no shame in that. And she's the world record holder in the 400 IM, didn't touch her world record, but blew away the field. And that's what you can hope for. And then I got to give an extra bump is that she was also the MVP of my fantasy team.
That's right, she was. Yeah, and no shame in plugging your fantasy team. That's why we do it. That's what it's all about. But yeah, 3 golds and a silver individually for her to, at age 17, win her first Olympic medal, her first Olympic gold medal, walk away from Paris with 3 Olympic titles, and if I'm not mistaken, 2 Olympic records.
Yeah, so I was actually about to ask, is this 2? Because I assume she didn't crack the 400 IM Olympic record, but got the 2 IM and 2 fly.
Yeah. So, she just had a lights out meet. She had a ton of expectation coming in to this meet, and she completely delivered on that. Similar to Leon on the men's side, but yeah, it's
interesting how similar that like when you start looking at the performances and the event lineup too, right? 2 IM, 4 IM, 2 fly. Then you only swap out the 4 free and the 2 breast are where they differentiate.
With both swimmers, but I think with Summer particularly, it will be really fun to see if they play around with her event lineup moving forward, because they're obviously both so versatile, but I think Leon's versatility comes a little more naturally in the yards pool and short course, as we've seen, because his walls are so good, and obviously he can do anything. But I think men's events are just there's a little more depth internationally, whereas women's events, and maybe this is just Summer, maybe she's just really, really good at a lot of events, but it's like, we've been vying for her to swim the 200 free internationally or the 800 free internationally. She's got a few more options where she can be a real gold medal threat. And so it'll be interesting to see that now that she's not only had an amazing world championships, but it's like she had the best Olympics she could have hoped for. Like how are we going to experiment and keep things fresh and fun for her moving forward? So I'm excited to see that and what her and her coach and team decide on that front. But hands down, Summer McIntosh swimmer of the meet. And that's our Olympic review. Thanks everyone for joining. You've got nearly 2 hours of Olympic content to sift through. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you again, David, for coming on and joining me in this endeavor.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. It's always fun to be able to break down just such a wealth of swimming, just excitement, right? You know, from so many performances, and I'm sure we could probably just keep knocking out episodes for an hour at a time apiece until I just pass out from exhaustion, because you know, everywhere you look there's another story, and that's one of the things that I think, you know, big championship level meets, but especially the Olympics, because you have so many stories that wrap up over the course of 4 years. Just is what the sport is all about at times.
Absolutely. And I mean, for weeks to come, we'll be digesting this meet, looking into different narratives. So don't go too far. We'll have plenty of content coming your way, but thanks a lot for listening today, and we'll see you next time. You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.